it's not at all uncommon to have entrepreneurs come to us with an idea. They don't have the funding for the idea. They don't have a trust fund that they can just rely on, and they're willing to put their own sweat equity into making this dream, making this idea a reality. And so the endless amounts of funds, the last thing that we want is for somebody with an excellent idea to use all their resources on legal services.
Natalie, it's great to have you on the Women Who Build podcast. You are the first lawyer that we have on the podcast. So I am very excited to ask you some of the most important questions that founders should ask when they are building their startups. They are the legal questions. So thanks so much for taking the time early in the morning.
Well, thank you, Shreya. I'm thrilled to be the first lawyer on your podcast.
Absolutely. So, Natalie, you are the partner and chair of Employment and Labor Group at Gunderson Dettmer. What does Gunderson do, and what does being the partner and chair of the Employment and Labor Group really mean?
So, we're a unique firm. We're focused on the innovation economy. We have hundreds of lawyers located in key venture markets across the globe. And that's, our primary focus really is supporting technology companies and life sciences companies through every stage of their growth, as well as venture capital and growth equity firms. And my role as chair of the labor and employment practice is really to make sure that we are supporting startups and VCs as best we can with all needs related to people.
So, you work with technology companies, as you suggested, and at what stage do these companies start engaging with you, and who do you interface with within these companies?
Great question. It starts very early. Typically, when a company is looking to start hiring employees, and we really, we support so many innovators that we are innovators ourselves, and so we really find ways to make it as easy as possible. So if you are a founder and you're hiring your very first employee, even knowing what should go into an offer letter. And the answer really does depend on which state the employee is located and what can we ask of an employee in a proprietary information and invention agreement. Again, that can be state dependent. So have been able to do things like self-service contract generators so that you, even as a founder who's hiring your first employee, can go ahead and in the process of putting those employment agreements together, have sort of a lesson in, okay, what is exempt versus non-exempt, and what's the minimum salary? What are other considerations, notices that should perhaps go into that engagement? So it might start at that stage. Sometimes we'll have founders who will need to have a difficult conversation with one of their employees. And so sometimes that's the first time that we're working with them. But it really is an evolution of the types of services that we provide. We encourage our clients not to wait until there's a problem, because there's so much that we can do in terms of just having the right policies in place, the right agreements in place. And we've created a lot of what we called streamlined matter action request tools, so that at whatever stage a company is, they can request of our team to provide them things like the policy or a commission plan, or to help do some sort of an analysis of classification of employees, or to generate perhaps performance improvement plans if they're looking for ways to better manage employees. And then we'll support a company all the way through an exit. Most of our companies are looking for successful exits. That might be an acquisition, that might be going public. And so even after some of our companies have gone public, we'll continue to support them. And for those who are acquired, we'll help them through the due diligence process.
And who do you work with? Is it usually the founder, or does it depend on the stage of the company? As it progresses, they maybe hire more people. What does that look like?
Yeah, it depends on the stage. So early on, it will be a founder or a CEO or a COO, CFO. And then as the company grows, it will hire its a first chief people officer, perhaps, and then a general counsel. And so who we're working with really depends on that stage of development, but it tends to be one of those individuals.
How should founders think about their legal practices? Because I believe that, while founders are hopefully good at their business acumen, or there could be some focus on product, maybe they're product people, but they are definitely not legal people. So how should founders really think about structuring their legal practices, and what are the common mistakes that you've seen founders make when they engage with you or any other lawyer?
I think that if you are a startup, you really don't want, it's going to sound strange coming from a lawyer, but you don't want the law to get in the way of your progress. So the law can be a very scary thing, and to know that you're doing everything just right and crossing every T and dotting every I can be expensive and very, very challenging. And I'm sitting here in California, so I would say especially in places like California. So it's for that reason. I should mention we have developed a platform for our clients that really it's a lot of those self-service tools that we talked about, and then also just some short videos on basic aspects of employment law. So to avoid making some of the more common mistakes, I would say that for startups, one of the more difficult challenges is just engaging your talent. And so with, post-pandemic, we had everything going more remote, distributed, and companies looking to engage talent however they could. And so I would say that a common mistake for early stage companies might be hiring everyone as an independent contractor when maybe they should be engaged instead as an employee. I would also say not getting there are some required policies that really should be in place. You want to make sure that if there is a problem, you're hearing about that problem from your employees. So really explaining in a set, and your policies don't have to be a huge set of policies, but at least saying, hey, we believe in an equitable and inclusive workforce. If you have any issues, if you have any concerns, here's how you can raise those issues or concerns. Just having basic policies in place like that is really helpful. And then I would say the other thing is having those difficult conversations, and sometimes not knowing what you can say when there is a problem. And I would say in particular, navigating how to handle when you might have a performance related issue that also involves perhaps needs to accommodate someone who's having a tough time because of a disability, because of a medical condition, because of a problem with helping a family member. We help employers also navigate those types of issues.
Yeah, and that must be hard, right? Because I'm sure it must be a dilemma for the founder themselves, because they can't just say stop taking care of the family member if you're not performing at work. So it could be really hard.
Yeah, and our laws really are designed to keep in mind that 1,000 employee company is going to be held to different expectations than a company that has 4 employees.
Yeah.
And so that's also, really, really a part of it. And then sometimes, our clients, they have to be agile. They have to pivot quickly due to market forces, due to what they're discovering with their own offerings and products. And so going through something like a reorganization can be difficult. And so we'll help with best practices around the communication to those who will be impacted by the reduction in force, and then the communications to those who will stay with the company. And that's always tough. So helping those employees with sometimes that survivor's guilt.
Absolutely. And I believe that you brought about a very important topic, which is very relevant to what we're seeing in the markets today. Of course, the fundraising process has been hard. And I also read that many of the firms or startups will actually die because of the lack of runway, right? And therefore, how are you seeing the employee practices or employment practices evolve in the current times? What are you focused on, in these last few months or even today? Like, what are the top 3 things that you're definitely working with the founder on? And I think that also points to the larger question around, can the market behavior actually even change the way you engage with founders, right? You talked about agility, so would love to double click on.
Yeah, no, as I mentioned, sure, it's a lot of pivoting quickly.
Right.
And so in 2021, we were helping a lot of our clients really scale quickly to meet the needs. And I think that what we've seen in the last few years, and I would say last year was a year of really finding that right size and reacting to the fact that investors weren't putting as much into some of these startups. I think we're definitely seeing an uptick now, both in terms of the deal work, in terms of investors really looking for those great opportunities to put dollars to work. And so it is, a lot of it really is to think through. It could be that there's been an acquisition and our clients really looking to take that talent and best integrate it into their operations. But yeah, lots of movement and a focus and thinking through finding the right talent. There is often a fire fast that goes on because founders won't have the luxury of just hoping that the performance will improve over time.
No, absolutely. It can be hard. But would love to now switch gears to your favorite topic and our favorite topic in technology, which is AI and its implication on law practices. You gave talks about the legalities and regulations around AI in 2019. For example, you spoke about it at the RSA conference. So from then and now, how do you think have the AI technology and the related risks evolved?
I think I first started speaking on this subject in 2016.
Oh, wow.
And my goodness, have we seen, I think many of us lawyers never thought that we would see what we're seeing now in our own industry. It used to be thought that you had to have a high degree of technical skills to really best understand how to build and utilize these tools. But there's been a real democratization because of how popular the generative AI and how accessible generative AI really is for everyone. But lawyers in particular, I think, have really seen what can be done. And as I mentioned, we're a firm that supports innovators, and we are innovators ourselves. And so generative AI really isn't something that was new to us. It's been something that we've been working with for years. And so last year we were able to launch our own homegrown generative AI called ChatGD. And
Wow.
it's wonderful because it allows our lawyers to work in that safe, closed enterprise environment using Microsoft's Azure. But again, it's homegrown, and so it's language agnostic, and it uses retrieval augmented generation, which means you don't have the data privacy concerns. You don't have to have the same concerns around potential hallucinations. And we want to be as efficient as possible for our clients. And again, startups we don't want them to be spending their resources on legal services, where our goal is to really help them grow through the life cycles and do what we can to help them succeed. And so we've been able to build a lot of efficiencies into the way that we practice law. But yes, from 2016 to now, huge changes. And what we really advocate, and the head of my practice group's innovation efforts, Stephanie Gutos and we actually co-wrote an article last summer called Why Lawyers Must Responsibly Embrace Generative AI, because that's how much we believe that to provide better legal services, to drive those better efficiencies, it really is a tool that has to be embraced, just in the same way that lawyers learn to embrace email. There were questions, early on of, can we use this? And then questions about the internet. I don't know. And there was a piece published in Yale Law Review. I don't know, maybe it's probably less than, I don't know. I don't remember exactly when it was written, but it was this big question about what do we do about the internet as lawyers? Can we use it?
Yeah. And it's pretty exciting that you mentioned the nature of the industry, right? Because, I started my career in finance, and my first question when AI came about, I mean, sure, like I think firms like Blackstone, Bridgewater, etc., have been using AI since forever. But when you, as you said, right, when AI was democratized, my first question was, is it even legal to put out questions there, right? Like, I don't know if I'm committing a crime. I don't know, right? So I believe, um, you know, in fact, one of the reasons I want to get to the next question is also because my partner who works in AI research, he suggested that law is probably the first regulated sector that can integrate well with AI. And this is because law is purely logical. And there is a set of precedents governing cases as well. So is that correct? And when you say that you're implementing, I would say, AI services into your processes, how does that work across all levels? And do you have a specific team that helps you with it?
Great questions. Well, first off, I think, law, obviously a very highly regulated industry, but we've seen healthcare and financial institutions also really to other highly regulated industries, amongst others who have definitely found ways to integrate these solutions into what they offer. And I think when it comes to law, one of our responsibilities, Model Rule 1.1 really is that we should be understanding. We should understand the tools of our trade, and we should have this degree of technical competence. And yes, I think we will see, and we are seeing, that the legal industry is quickly integrating and adopting these tools, being very mindful of all of our obligations to safeguard client information. to make sure that the advice that we're giving. And last year we saw a lot in the news about lawyers who were blindly using some of these tools to give legal answers. And just like any research tool at our disposal, just like any technological tool, it needs human oversight. So the lawyer can use it for human augmentation, but not to replace what the lawyer's doing. But yeah, for years we've been using artificial intelligence tools to help with due diligence, and now we're using it to help with drafting documents, with summarizing. We're using tools to analyze data. It's nice. We're now at a point where we can know with a high degree of certainty what the expected cost is of, let's say there's a founder dispute and it's in New York, and this is the size of the company, and let's say there's an attorney on the other end. So taking all the data, really using, because we, our firm is very good about capturing data, and the data is so very valuable because of our focus on the information economy. And so being able to use that for predictive purposes is certainly very important.
How does a law firm do it, in the sense that, you knew, I'm sure you knew what would define success for you in the absence of AI. Now that AI has come, how do you measure success, and how do you figure out that, hey, this AI solution, chat GD, or whatever, like hypothetical chat lawyer, is actually effective in helping you save time, dollars, or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when chat GD was launched, our team kept visibility in terms of what the queries were, what the responses were, ways to, if there were need to sort of fine tune the way lawyers were using it. Everyone, and not just the lawyers, were trained on how to, so paralegals as well, trained on how to use ChatGPT. That happened also last summer. And so, and the firm put out its policies. But in terms of how success is measured, it really is around, are we delivering the services more effectively, faster? So the efficiency and the accuracy is something that we're absolutely measuring. And then on my team, we're doing things like looking at who's using which of the smart requests, and can we build more? So, for example, I mentioned that we have our contract generator. So it's do it yourself. Our clients, they can go to their platform, their GDHQ platform, and they can generate the offer letter, generate the PIIA. Now what we're building is, and by the way, that doesn't, to use the tool, you're a GD client, so you don't pay to use the tool. You, anytime you use it, you go in and you use it. And we, on the back end, to make sure that it's 50 state compliant, we're just fine-tuning it on the back end to keep pace with the ever-changing landscape of laws through the various states and even municipalities in some cases. And now we're building a similar tool so that our clients can self-serve policies.
In the age of AI, I believe it's very important to figure out how does the pricing work, right? Because there are like a million, or not a million, I think I'm exaggerating, but multiple solutions, AI solutions, right? And we don't know which one works better versus another, right? To give you an example, as I do this podcasting, I think I'm also trying to streamline the process a little bit using AI to the extent possible. There are some use cases for which Llama is great. There are some use cases for which ChatGPT is great, right? And therefore, like, I'm always in two minds. I'm almost thinking to get subscription to both, to pay for both. So my point being, pricing is important, but we just don't know yet. At least I don't, as a consumer, as to which one to pay for, right? And therefore, I think even as a lawyer, it's very important to take that into account, because that might impact the way law practices would be priced as well, right? So in today's day and age, how do you differentiate a good lawyer versus an okay one? And what will people pay for? Yeah.
And most of our clients, at least, are looking for is a trusted advisor. So
Right.
somebody who can really be strategic, who can be proactive, who can really give practical advice. Lawyers sometimes tend to be very rigid and, by the book. And sometimes you have to keep in mind this is a business that is growing, and there's certain ways of operating that make sense at different levels, different stages of growth. So I think having a lawyer that gets that is very business minded, and I would say that that's something that all of my colleagues really have in common, is important. And also just to be able to let people know what to expect in
Right.
terms of the costs. To your point, it's good for you to know, okay, what should I be budgeting to use this particular tool? So I think having fixed fees, which is something we do quite a lot with our startup clients, is important. And I think another way to really distinguish a good lawyer from one who could be better is you do want to look for somebody who believes in human augmentation,
Love
who
it.
is very, very familiar with how technology really can transform the delivery of legal services. Because unfortunately, there are still some law firms out there who say, wait, let's not change the way we've been doing things. We've been doing these things for decades and decades. And, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But I think that's really the wrong way to think about it, because everything is different now. And if firms wait to see what happens, I think they'll quickly find themselves falling behind. So learning how to embrace these tools responsibly is critically important, so that lawyers can really focus on being those trusted advisors, on doing things that only people can do, being creative with solutions, negotiating on behalf of clients, helping our clients plan, really thinking ahead to, all right, we're getting ready for a successful exit. Again, it could be an acquisition, it could be going public, but what do we, now that we're a Series D, what do we really need to be thinking about to take us next level, or what is it that the investors will really be focused on? And it's not, it's not that difficult to get your ducks in a row if you have the right tools and solutions at your disposal. So I would say also looking for a lawyer, looking for a firm that will give you these tools that will enable you to be successful and not get tripped up by easily avoided legal pitfalls.
Yeah. Very interesting thing that you mentioned. And I love that, right? Because I've seen this question, come to me multiple times as an investor, which is just around pricing, right? Like being very transparent about pricing. And I say that because, as you already know, I used to invest in India. Many of these Indian clients or Indian portfolio companies actually want to go to the US. They just don't know what to ask and when to ask the price question, right? The pricing question. Is it rude to ask the pricing question in on the first call? Like, I'm pretty open. Like, I literally ask because I tell them I need to budget. I have X dollars. Are you willing to do it? Right. So I think that's one question. The second is that for earlier stage companies, right, that may be sort of still finding their footing. Are there like variable pricing structures that folks can work with when, say, for example, if they are in India, they're in, I don't know, Kenya, not in the US basically, and they're trying to launch in the US? Are there any variable structures in place that at least Gunderson has that they can work with? And yeah, is it rude to ask the question?
No, so it's not rude to ask the question, and it should be asked at the outset. And I think it's expected, and maybe it is again because of our unique focus. But these are it's not at all uncommon to have entrepreneurs come to us with an idea. They don't have the funding for the idea. They don't have a trust fund that they can just rely on, and they're willing to put their own sweat equity into making this dream, making this idea a reality. And so the endless amounts of funds, the last thing that we want is for somebody with an excellent idea to use all their resources on legal services. So the question should be asked early on. And typically it's my corporate colleagues that are having these conversations. But we do have, as a firm, we do have a system in place, depending on stage of development, that is very easy, I think, for founders to understand. And it's a little along the lines of, you're not going to pay for those legal services until you're at a stage where it looks like you're able to pay for those legal services. Again, this is more a conversation for my corporate colleagues, but yeah, I would say any founder should be asking those questions at the outset.
That's very helpful because many founders in India actually have this question and they don't know which one to close out first, right? Should we close out funding first? Should we close out the legal first? Oh my God, I don't have the money. Maybe I don't even deserve to go forward with the idea, but I do need the legalities aspect sorted because I'm coming from India to the US and I don't want to mess up with immigration or what have you, right? So it's always on their minds.
We work with a lot of pre-seed companies. So.
Oh, wow, that's great. So Gunderson clients were recognized in Forbes America's Best Startup Employers list. What do you have to say about startups that are helping law firms with their law practices? I know you have something in-house, but what are your thoughts on external parties or external partners?
Oh, we have several.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do. We do. We look at every opportunity, and this is not me. This is our Chief Innovation Officer, Joe Green, and our Chief Knowledge Officers as well. Naveen, they're really looking at every and their team, I should say, by the way, and saying, okay, do we take this tool and think about building a hybrid model? Do we go ahead and is it worth, after pilot program, is it worth paying the costs associated, or is this something that we might be building better off trying to build ourselves because we are so focused in what we do? But we have for doing things like building chatbots, we're using a tool for doing things like taking large numbers of documents and being able to streamline those with hyperlinks and really save in the time that it would otherwise take for a lawyer to go through and point to the sources of the various evidence of, certainly in connection with our deal work, with our due diligence. We use many tools, and we build many tools.
So how long do you think you have taken to, approve, if at all, approve a product, like potentially a product from pilot to full on commercialization? And how can founders really think about engaging with you or any other legal firm there is?
Well, we do our homework, so we definitely do the research. We'll do a pilot program, but if it's a good solution and we believe in it and it's safe, and there's a lot that go for a highly regulated industry, there's a lot of eyes that have to go on every offering to make sure that it's absolutely secure, that it will protect our confidential client information, that it doesn't possibly come with any cybersecurity risks. And so the vetting process, it can be a fairly quick one. It also really helps to know what work has already been done in terms of the security compliance work, in terms of audits, in terms of others who have worked. I mean, for example, if we were to use, let's say, a candidate sourcing tool, we would definitely want to see the industry-specific validation studies.
Yeah.
Make
Right.
sure that there isn't any unintended algorithmic bias. As a for example, we are not, and I say that more as an example of our clients who are wanting to use these candidate sourcing tools. That's a kind of advice that we would give to them. But in terms of the legal service providers who are looking for, who've come up with new and innovative ways, we're often getting approached. And I think the reason that we're often getting approached is because we have been early adopters and early growers of these solutions.
Well, thank you so much, Natalie. It was so good to have you, and very, very nuanced answers. And I'm sure that founders will definitely benefit from it. And I hope some of them reach out to you after watching this video. So thank you so much for taking the time.
I've really enjoyed this discussion, Shreya. Thank you so much.